Welcome back to the channel. This is a More Better Ascend coming at you with an awesome white Lifegain deck. This deck is awesome. It's powerful. It's gonna gain you so much life. It's absolutely insane. This was the second deck that I built way back in the day, and I've just constantly been upgrading it ever since. Now it's finally at a point where I feel like I can't really add any other different cards to it. There's a huge sideboard on this deck of just more like a maybe board of cards that I've put in and out of this deck to play around with it. I do own this deck in paper. This deck is insanely expensive, so that's why it's been built over time, and I've been buying the cards slowly. But now that I have all the cards, this deck is absolutely insane. I played it multiple times and it can't lose. It's just that good. Let's jump into the deck and the cards and the synergies, and let's talk about it. Now, the whole point of this deck, obviously, it's called Lifegain, is to gain life. And the way you gain life is through multiple different channels. And when you gain the life, that's what triggers all of the different things in your deck that will do different things and that will win the game for you. So let's start off at the beginning. We got 1 mana, we got Soul Warden. This is the best life gain 1-drop, or just life gainer, probably in the game. You just throw it down for 1 mana, and then you gain a life, not just when you put creatures onto the battlefield. It says when another creature. So anytime your opponent casts a creature spell, you are also gaining a life. And every time you gain a life, that causes a trigger on the stack for everything else in your deck. So you're going to be gaining life. You're going to be adding +1/+1 counters. You're going to be adding different little triggers, all these different things, just because of this one mana creature. This creature, I can't talk about how amazing she is, even though she's only just a little 1/1. Now, how else are we going to gain life when creatures enter? Normally, you could put in something like Case of the Uneaten Feast, or a Johnny's Welcome, or something like that. I prefer the new card from Modern Horizons 3. This is Guide of Souls. This is a 1 mana 1/2, so it's a little bit of an upgrade. It says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, so that's the problem, you gain 1 life. So it's not as powerful as Soul Warden, but you also get an energy counter. And then when you attack, you can pay 3 energy, and you can see the costs of all the creatures in our deck. We're going to be putting tons of creatures on the battlefield. So just by having the Guide of Souls out there, you're going to be able to pay that 3 and put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on a target attacking creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types. So you're going to be able to get in over the top. You're going to be able to boost up your creatures even more so than the normal amount that gets boosted just because of gaining life. So this is just a nice little added bonus to the deck that wasn't here before Modern Horizons 3. All right, we also have at 1 mana a Flying Lifelinker. This is a 1 mana 1/1 bat, Ruin Lurker bat. It says at the beginning of the end step, if you descended this turn, scry 1. So when you descend is when a permanent was put into your graveyard from anywhere. So if you're forced to discard, if you attack and something dies and it goes into your graveyard, then you get to scry. So normally this placeholder would be for Healer Hawk, but this is just the upgraded version of Healer Hawk. It's now a bat. Healer Hawk was the same thing. 1 mana, 1/1, flying lifelink, that's it. So we're just adding this extra line of text in here, and that's what upgrades it, and that's what knocked out Healer Hawk from this deck. Next up, we have Ocelot Pride. Now this card, let me tell you, there's a lot of words on this card, and there's a lot of abilities on this card for just 1 mana. This is absolutely insane. It's a 1 mana, 1/1 first strike lifelink. Just that alone would be a great card. And now we got to add all this extra stuff in the bottom. Let's see. Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get these blessing for the rest of the game. Okay, great. With a deck like this, with the amount of little tokens and creatures and lands and all this kind of stuff, we're easily going to get to that. Then it says at the bottom, at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then if you have the city's blessing, for each token you control that entered the battlefield this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. So we put out Soul Warden, then we put out Ocelot Pride. We gain 1 life for Ocelot Pride entering the battlefield. We get to create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Good. Once we have 10 total permanents, any token that entered the battlefield this turn, you get to just create an extra copy of it. So it's almost like a doubling season kind of effect, or like a Mondrak effect. So we have a lot of creatures in here that are going to create tokens, like the Resplendent Angel. If we gain 5 or more life this turn, we get to create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Now we're going to have 2 of those if we have the City's Blessing, which this can get out of control very quickly. All right, next up, we have Skyclave Cleric. Now, this is just a one-off, just as a, just in case. This is a 2-mana 1/3. Just a vanilla creature, 1/3, that says when it enters, you gain 2 life. But it has another helpful point on this. We just read the Resplendent Angel. This is a 3-mana 3/3 flying angel. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So, if you have the Resplendent Angel and the Righteous Valkyrie, and I'll just go over this card real quick. This is a 3-mana 2/4 flying angel. Whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield under control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So, if you have the Righteous Valkyrie and the Resplendent Angel in play, you need to gain 5 life to get that 4/4 angel. So when this enters, you gain 2 life. So there's 2 life right there. And that's if you don't have anything else in play, like a Guide of Souls or a Soul Warden or anything like that. Let's just say you only have the Valkyrie and the Angel on the battlefield. You gain 2 life for this, and then with the Righteous Valkyrie, you gain 3 life for this Cleric's toughness. So you're going to gain 5 life total. So this is just a 2-mana card that just gets to come into play, and then you gain 5 life, you get a 1/3, and then you also get to put a 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance onto the battlefield as well at the end of your turn. So that's just like a nice little bonus. This just takes the place of a land because it does flip over for a Skyclave Basilica that enters tapped. So in a pinch, we can decide which side we want to use. There's only 20 lands in the deck, so you definitely want to make sure you have a good strategy going of when you're going to be getting lands out and stuff like that. So if you need a land, throw this out, tapped, no big deal. If you don't, you get to put a creature out in the battlefield, gain 2 life, which also does all the triggers for everything else. All right, next up, we have Voice of the Blessed. Now, everybody knows this card. This is a pretty good staple in Lifegain decks. This is a 2-mana 2/2 Spirit Cleric, so you're going to gain life for it being a cleric. And whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. So, as you can see, there are tons of Lifegain triggers in this deck. There's gaining life with Soul Warden. There's gaining life with the Ruin Lurker Bat if it attacks. There's gaining life with the Ocelot Pride if it attacks, and it also gets to create tokens, which can create more life gain triggers from the Soul Warden and the Guide of Souls. You obviously have the Guide of Souls that gains life. You have the Skyclave Cleric that when it enters, it gains life. You have Righteous Valkyrie that whenever an angel or cleric enters the battlefield, you gain life. You have Resplendent Angel, where if you pay 6 until end of turn, this creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. That's a one-off in a pinch. You can see the amount of triggers, and then the biggest one is going to be Linden, who I call Oprah. She is a 3-mana 3/3 vigilance, and whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain 1 life. And you gain 1 life as separate triggers for each creature. So you attack with all of your cat tokens, and you have 4 of them. That's four separate triggers, which means +4/+4 to your Voice of Blessed. And then if it has 4 or more 1/1 counters on it, it has Flying and Vigilance. Okay, that's nice. And then as long as it has 10 or more, it has Indestructible. So big win condition right here, Voice of the Blessed, for sure. All right, we already talked about Righteous Valkyrie and Resplendent Angel. And now we're going to talk about a removal package, which is just for Sheltered by Ghosts. I love this card. It's the best card that came out of Dustmourne, I think. It is a 2-mana enchantment that gets to exile a non-land permanent. So it could be an artifact, it could be an enchantment, it could be a creature, it could be a planeswalker, whatever you want. And it just gets to exile it underneath the creature that you enchant. And then that creature stays exiled until Sheltered by Ghosts leaves the battlefield. So if you can get a Sheltered by Ghosts on your Voice of the Blessed, you will win the game, pretty much. Because enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has lifelink and ward 2. So you're going to have ward 2 on this creature, and then it's going to have lifelink. So it's going to gain its own life, gain life itself just by attacking on top of all the other triggers that you have. So you're going to get to 10 +1/+1 counters very quickly. But until you get there, it's going to have ward 2, which gives it some nice protection. And then once it gets past the 10, you're still, you're gaining tons of life, which obviously this is the whole point of this deck. But giving a creature that constantly grows lifelink is huge. And then, let's say your Voice of the Blessed is huge, you're swinging in, you get the huge amounts of life that you're gaining. You don't really need to worry about defense that much because you're going to be gaining so much life, it won't even matter at that point. But you're going to be getting angel tokens from the Resplendent Angel if you gain 5 or more life. As long as your Voice of the Blessed has been on the battlefield for maybe like a turn, it's going to be bigger than 5. And you're going to be just pumping out tokens every turn. Tons and tons and tons and tons of tokens. And you're going to have an army of angels that are going to attack. So Sheltered by Ghost plus Voice of the Blessed is an insane combination. Now, let's get to the big star of the show. Heliod Suncrowned. This is a 3-mana legendary enchantment creature god. It has Indestructible right off the bat. And as long as your devotion to white is less than 5, it's not a creature, it just stays an enchantment. And that enchantment reads, whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. So basically, exactly what Voice of the Blessed does, where you gain life, or every time you gain life, you get to put a 1/1 counter. Now you get to put an extra 1/1 counter on something else, or on your Voice of the Blessed to get it up to 10 faster. So now you're almost doubling up every life gain trigger is going to count as 2 +1/+1 counters. So you just need 5 life gain triggers, and then you are at 10. And then you could pay 2 and give a creature lifelink until end of turn. So if you have 2 creatures attacking in, and you only have Sheltered by Ghosts on one of them, then you can pay 2 and give the other one lifelink. It's an easy way to use up some mana and gain up a ton of life and get those extra triggers. And then if you look at this deck, you look at the amount of pips. There's 57 pips in this deck. There are a lot of white pips, so you will get to 5 devotion very, very quickly. All right, moving back up, we already talked about Oprah. Now we're up to another great card for this deck, the Book of Exalted Deeds. This is a 3-mana legendary artifact. That's why I only put 1 in here. And this might be even better than Resplendent Angel because they both cost 3. It says at the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, create a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. So the Resplendent Angel, you need 5 life to gain. 3 is way easier to get to, for sure. And you get a 3/3, whereas with the Resplendent Angel, you get a 4/4, but it also has Vigilance. So it just kind of diversifies how much life we gain and what we can get on the battlefield because of it. So this card is pretty insane that you're going to be getting 3/3s, every turn pretty much. With the amount of life gain in this deck, especially just if you have a couple Soul Wardens out in the battlefield. Then, if you want to, you can pay 3 and tap it and exile the Book of Exalted Deeds and put an Enlightenment counter on target angel. So we do have angels. We have angel tokens. We have angel creatures. The Guide of Souls. If you use up your energy, it makes a creature into an angel. So there's a lot of angel synergy going on as well, kind of as a secondary synergy. That angel creature will gain. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So it's a platinum angel, basically, creator. So instead of spending all the money and the mana to cast a platinum angel, you can just throw one of these out in the battlefield, pay 3, just make one of your creatures into a platinum angel. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So you're basically putting that on a creature, and then they have to deal with that creature if they want to win the game. Otherwise, they are pretty screwed. So getting this on a Voice of the Blessed, after you got to Guide of Souls, put 2 1/1 counters and make it an angel on Voice of the Blessed, and then you can put this on it, and then your opponent can't win the game. So, because once it's indestructible, you can't really do much about it other than exile it. So they really need to have an exile feature in their deck, and if they don't, then they just lose. All right, and now the top end, our big boy, Ajani, Strength of the Pride. This card is sick. It's a 4 mana, 5 loyalty, legendary planeswalker. It's +1 ability. We're going to be using all 3 modes on this planeswalker, by the way. +1, you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control plus the number of planeswalkers you control. So however many creatures we have on the battlefield, all these little tokens, all that kind of stuff, we're going to gain a big chunk of life from that, which will trigger our Book of Exalted Deeds, our Resplendent Angel, and also our Heliod, and our Voice of the Blessed. You can see the synergy here that we're talking about, and our Ocelot Pride. All of these are going to be doing something because of the +1 ability on this. Then we have our -2, which is create an Ajani's Pride Mate, which is a card that used to be in this deck that I took out because now you can just have this Planeswalker create them for you, and you don't need to waste 4 slots for it. And then the last one, which is basically a Voice of the Blessed, but doesn't gain flying or vigilance or indestructible. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we have our final. This is our board wipe. You don't pay anything. You could do this ultimate right on the first time that you cast it, just because of the amount of life that you have. All you have to do is, if you have 35 life, then you can exile Ajani, Strength of the Pride, and each artifact and creature your opponents control. So this is an artifact and creature board wipe for just your opponents. So as long as you have 35 life, which, going over what we've talked about, you're going to be at 35 life in no time. You can just cast this for 4 and then exile it and wipe the entire board, turn all your pieces of cardboard sideways, and win the game. So this is definitely a huge win condition in here as well. Now moving on to the land and mana base, we have a bunch of planes, 1 Nykthos Shrine. Like I said before, we have so many pips that you're gonna have. If you have one of these on the battlefield, you're gonna gain so much mana. It's absolutely insane. Just having all those pips on all those different things. Like, we have a lot of creatures that have 2 to 3 pips, and you pay, as long as you're going to gain 4 mana from this, you're in the plus, because you do have to tap this and pay 2, so you're going to have to pay 3 to make this make mana. So as long as your devotion is above 4, then you're gaining mana. So with the amount of stuff that we have on the battlefield, you're going to gain so much mana, you're going to be able to dump your entire hand. We also have an Aganjo just for some interaction. We do have some legendary creatures in here. We have Heliod. I think that's it. Oh, and Linden, Oprah. We got 2 legendary creatures, so this could get discounted if we have both of them out there to 1 white mana. And it'll deal 4 damage to a target attacking or blocking creature, which could save one of our creatures, which is nice to do just in case. this is a just in case. And then we also have a Castle Ardenvale. This enters tapped unless you control planes. You get to add 1. And then in a pinch, if you are really screwed, if they board wipe you and you dumped your hand and you overextended or whatever, you can just pay 4 and create a 1/1 white human creature token. All right, now to the sideboard, which is just basically a maybe board. These are all the cards that were at one point in this deck and then taken out and put back in and then taken out and then put back in, because my brain is crazy. Let's start at the beginning. We had Speaker of Heavens. You know, if you have 7 more than your starting life total, you can just tap this and create a 4/4 white angel. I just wasn't a big fan of this card. Once you can get it going, it's great, but not my favorite. Johnny's Welcome, gaining life for when they come in, but Guide of Souls knocked that out. Same thing with Case of Uneaten Feast. We had a Cleric class in there because you could gain 2 life each time for each trigger, which is huge. And then you could pay 4, and it's basically a Heliod, but that's a lot of mana to invest. 5 mana to invest to just do what Heliod does for 3. Wasn't a big fan. We had 1 Daxos in there, just because when creatures die, you also get that 1 life, and it also has 2 pips. So you're getting extra triggers when creatures die as well. That was nice. And its devotion, its toughness is equal to your devotion. So this was going to be a big butted boy. He's usually like at least a 210 every single time I have him out there. So he's going to be able to block pretty much anything that's coming in, which was nice. But it's just a one of, so it was easy. It was easy to cut. Johnny's Pridemate, cut him obviously just because the Johnny that we have creates those. There's the Essence Channeler from Bloomborough. I kind of like this if I could find a spot for it, but I don't really have a spot for it. I like the fact that when it comes in and it gains all those +1/+1 counters, that you can put it on something else. So if we were really going for a +1/+1 counter life gain deck, I would have this in there for sure. But we're not really going for that. The Voice of the Blessed is kind of our win condition, but we don't really need Essence Channeler and a Johnny's Pridemate as secondaries because it really doesn't. It's just kind of redundant. But it could work. We had a Lurrus in there. You can cast it for all white. Just because we have so many 2-cost permanents that if they did board wipe us, then at least once a turn we could just keep, casting another one back out in the battlefield. Back when he was in the deck, I did actually win a game because of him, just because I was behind, and then every turn I was also empty-handed at the time too. So every turn I could, whatever I drew, I could cast, and then I could also cast something from the graveyard, which was huge in gaining me enough life to last and to create a board. So this card, obviously everyone knows this card is broken as shit, but that's why it was in the deck. And then Exemplar of Light, one of the new cards from Foundations. It's kind of the same thing as, Essence Channeler or Voice of the Blessed, except you get to draw a card once a turn off of it, and it already has flying, but for 4 mana, it's kind of expensive to put out there, especially if it doesn't have any protection or anything like that, and it doesn't get protection when it gets bigger. So this was kind of like a thought. Never bought this card, but it was kind of a thought of, you know what, maybe I'll put it in here just because I like the card draw, but wasn't worth it. So that's the deck. Let me know what you think about it. It is a very expensive deck, so definitely, don't just drop your credit card down on TCG Player and buy this. But if you do, you will not be sad about it, because this deck absolutely goes off. It is insane. So if you like this deck, if you like life gain, then definitely look into this deck because it is amazing. And I will be coming out with some more deck techs soon. I'm just got to create some more decks. I pretty much run through all the decks that I own, so might be a little bit until I get the next one out, but I will be getting some more out. So until next time, I'm More Better Sen, and we'll catch you for another deck tech.